Fiona Green. From an early age, she was persecuted as the illegitimate child of the Count Green and had an unfortunate childhood. However, she gradually revealed her talent for magic and later was praised as a great wizard. Listening to the story so far, Fiona looked like the main character in a novel, a genius wizard who rose from an unfortunate past. Isn't that a typical protagonist cliché? But unfortunately, Fiona could never be the main character. She took a deep breath involuntarily. "Fiona, are you listening to Father?" The sound of a stick hitting the floor rang out. Then she quickly raised her head and looked at the man in front of her. This man, in his early 40s, was the head of Count Green and Fiona's biological father. Well, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that he's her father now. She calmly answered, "I'm sorry, Father." Count Green clicked his tongue. It was too shallow to say that it was an expression that was shown to his biological daughter. In fact, he saw Fiona as a nuisance rather than a daughter. However, because of his pride as a nobleman, she reluctantly accepted her as an illegitimate child into the family. Her half-brother Kindell, who was right next to her, looking at her with contempt. Kindell said in a sarcastic voice, "Don't worry about being so lowly, Dad." "Oh, rip that mouth open." She grumbled inwardly. The current Fiona was just a 13-year-old girl with no power. In other words, she is a 13 years old. Fiona is a girl who is a badass right now, but who will later be praised as a genius wizard. Up to this point, it sounds like the main character, but in fact, it's not at all. She later became the final boss and had a future set to die fiercely at the hands of the main couple. Why do you know so well? That's because where we are now is the world of the novel. The title of this novel is none other than The Emperor and the Saint. As the title suggests, it is about a male protagonist who is an emperor and a female protagonist who is a saint, while they are in love and save the world. In addition, the end of the villainous Fiona was extremely tragic and merciless. Fiona, who had a natural magical talent and who later contracted with the darkness and had a heart dyed black, did not die easily. At the very end, she became almost immortal and threatened the main couple. Therefore, the male protagonist cuts off Fiona's neck with a sword, then splits her chest to extract the blackened heart. And when he comes out, he puts his sword into his still beating heart. That didn't end there. Fiona's neck, the world's worst witch, is set on the wall. The rest of her body is burned, and her soul is drowned in darkness, where she suffers endless pain and is mistreated. This is the ending of Fiona Green. It is also a story that could be her future. She smiled bitterly. Ha ha ha. I'd rather die now so I can go a little more comfortably. She managed to shake off her thoughts about Fiona's terrible end, or her future. Now, my father, Earl Green, had called the whole family, myself included, to the parlor. In such a situation, if he found out that he had sold his eyes again, he might have been beaten with a stick. As expected, Count Green soon began to open his mouth with a serious expression. And yesterday, from the Imperial Palace, an order was sent to our family to hire a wizard to send to the northern front, where the situation was bad. If her guess is correct, it was still about 6 years before the original work started. The war meant in this world was not a conflict between nations. More precisely, it is a battle between demons and humans. There were monsters led by cursed dragons and humans who could fight. Perhaps at this time, the Empire would be at a disadvantage because it had been pushed back in the fight against the monsters for a long time. If you ask why there are no dreams or hopes from the past on the topic of romance or fantasy novels, it is to make the main character stand out. In a world where humans are increasingly being killed by cursed dragons and monsters, people are saved by the male and female protagonists. That's why one of you must join the battle in the Northern Front." At the word her father brought out, entry in the war, the agitation of her half-brothers and sisters gathered in the drawing room grew louder. "Father, you are going to war. Are we?" House Green was one of the wizarding families of the Empire. So when the situation worsens, it is natural for the Imperial Palace to order support. The bigger question is, who the hell goes to war here? Count Green, who knew the truth better than anyone else, only had a pretentious smile. "I wonder if any of my children will be brave enough to volunteer for this glorious work." Everyone looked into each other's eyes and was silent. Then, Kindle poked her in the side and whispered, "You go, you bastard." She glanced at him and wrapped her arms around her throbbing side. The Count has 4 children in total, but with the exception of her, the youngest, the 3 above were all children of the Countess. So, in their heart, everyone is hoping that she, the useless, illegitimate child, will go to war instead. Even more, Kindle raised his hand and said, "Father, strangely enough, our youngest daughter is going to apply. I don't think she can speak out loud because of shyness. Come on, wait a minute." Of course, having never said a word, I looked at Kindle with my eyes wide open. When our eyes met, he let out one very mean laugh. This child. Count Green welcomed her with a smirk on his face. Even the second Jane started helping out. "Yes, Fiona. Kindle is supposed to be in the family, and I'm going to get married soon. The third Zen is also getting engaged to a pretty girl. In a situation like this, how can you send it to Saji with such compassion? You'd better go." When she opened her mouths, everyone stared at her with their faces hardened. It was then that she finished judging the situation. It was something that had been decided from the beginning. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "All right, I will leave." Fiona, who wasn't even the main character, had only one line in the past. As an illegitimate child, she grew up being persecuted by her family. That's how it's implemented right in front of her. A family that casually sends a 13-year-old into the middle of the battlefield hoping to die. As a child of the final villain, there was no dream or hope. Somehow she feels sad. A year ago, when she realized that she had possessed Fiona's body for the first time, she wasn't so sad. For some reason, she felt very sorry. Fiona, who had never been truly loved by anyone throughout her life, resented the world. Then, in the end, they fall into an irreversible swamp due to the wrong choice. But unlike her, she didn't want to resent anyone easily, because this was the world she wrote down. The Duke of Halon was a representative family that had been defending the North for a long time. The Lord, Duke Abel Halon, is known for his harsh and merciless personality, as he is in charge of the forefront. Then, driven by her parents and brothers, she arrived at Halon, the northern realm ruled by the ruthless Duke of Abel. The first place she went to when she arrived at the estate was the castle of the Duke of Halon. Just by looking at this, she could guess that the new job would not be easy. The knight who was guiding her inside the castle stopped and said. She got out of her thoughts at the same time and looked up at the huge door in front of me. It seemed to be the entrance to the reception room to meet the Duke. A man was sitting on a huge chair in the middle of it. He is a young man with silver hair as white as snow and blue eyes like a block of ice. The face itself was beautiful and had a sharp impression. Surprisingly, it feels more like an intelligent staff than a strong warrior. However, as a ruler of the rough northern part, the sense of intimidation was terrifying. In the film, Duke Abel Halon was an important supporting role. More precisely, it is the position of a representative helper of the male protagonist, Sigrun. As a cool middle-aged character who helps the main character at important moments, it was quite popular among readers. She swallowed her saliva involuntarily. That man is Abel Halon, a person who later becomes the teacher of the male protagonist, Sigrun. Abel frowned as soon as their eyes met. I heard that a new wizard is definitely coming to apply. The words that were then uttered were also so cold that she got goosebumps on my arms. What the hell is this skinny kid? Well, the future here is bleak for her. She said, "My name is Fiona Green." Despite the harsh reaction, she greeted with the utmost respectful attitude. Abel, still without a frown, turned to look at the man who appeared to be a close entourage. "Geron, how the hell did this happen?" The person called Geron was a young man who appeared to be in his mid-20s. He looked at her for a moment with a bewildered look, then turned his gaze to Abel again. "I heard that Count Green had sent a wizard from his direct lineage, but... well, that's not really wrong. Although she is an illegitimate child, he has a direct blood relative, and he knows how to use magic." Abel sharpened his teeth. "Are you saying that the result now is just one little kid?" Abel then fluttered his thick cloak and stood up from his chair. His gaze on me grew even darker. His blue eyes seemed to be trapped in winter. At least you can see how funny he looked at us. When this dreadful war is over, we will start with the Green estates. She thought, "Oh, it's ruined. Father, it seems that the strongest duke in the north has been furious. In fact, she didn't really care what the Green family would look like in the future. Rather, she have a bigger problem with Abel, who is on the verge of an explosion of anger." She heard Abel walking slowly in front of her. "Go back home, kid," he said. Having calculated this and that in her head, she said calmly, "Wait a minute, Duke. I have something to tell you." Abel stopped walking and glanced down at her. "I cannot obey that command." Abel frowned at her. If she were an ordinary 13-year-old child, she would have cried. I looked straight up at Abel. "I'm not going back, but I will not be reckless and insist on letting you be here. Just give me one chance." Abel asked, "What opportunity are you talking about?" She replied, "This is an opportunity to prove my worth." Abel gave him an interesting gaze. "Seriously, it must be surprising that a girl who looks like an ordinary 13-year-old on the outside says something like this," he said in a voice that gave her strength, as if he was trying to scare me. "A kid like you? Do you want to do chores? However, there are many excellent users in my castle. If not, I wonder how the hell are you going to prove it?" It wasn't a difficult question. Besides, she knew to some extent how to deal with Abel. She clenched my fists and spoke in a steady voice. "Just once, let me go to war as a wizard. I will show you that I can help enough in this war. Let's see how future unfold for them. Hope you all liked it. See you in the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe. I will meet you all in the next video. Have a great day."